Welcome to Jimmy's Fads Under 5. We'll be looking at the history of fasting, intermediate fasting protocols, claims and reasoning behind them, the secret of intermittent fasting, who is it for, and how to adjust it to fit your lifestyle. I categorize intermittent fasting and any other diet protocol as a fad because they all piggyback off of the effects of law of thermodynamics and regular eating intervals. There is no successful diet that disregards both of these strategies. The brief history of fasting are as follows, and I say brief just in case you're some History Channel savant and are ready to debunk me. Dating back to cultures and religions beyond 6000 BC, every single nation at some point in time did some type of sacrifice for the sake of expressing their will, obedience, and devotion for the higher forms. They would sacrifice basic necessities like food, shelter, water, and even pleasure. More recently, in 1915, there have been some documentations of fasting protocols used to treat obesity. However, even more recent, in the early years of the internet, Martin Berkhan popularized intermittent fasting with his lean gains approach. I'm sure some of you OGs know about this. There are a number of protocols that fall under the intermittent fasting diet, and depending on your life and preference, some may work better for you than others. Note that each protocol has a cult-like following, like community. More on this later. There's the all-day fasting, which is an interval between 1 day of complete fasting, or the less intense version, which is 25% of what you would normally eat, and the next day is completely normal eating. The warrior's diet, which is 20 hours of fasting and 4 hours of eating. Now, the 20 hours you can eat small amounts of veggie and fruits, as normal. The eat, stop, eat is 1 to 2 days a week of completely no food and only calorie-free beverages. The Fast 5, which is simply 19 hours of fasting and 5 hours of feeding, and the Lean Gains, which is 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of feeding, which is the only protocol that actually puts an emphasis on muscle retention. All the other protocols do not really focus on muscle retention. They're mainly geared towards losing weight. The claims of intermittent fasting can be broken up into two categories. One being the markers of health, which are the decreased body weight, blood sugar levels, blood pressure, and cholesterol, which when compared to a diet with even eating intervals throughout the day and reduced calories, do the exact same thing. And psychological factors like decreased hunger and increased energy, mood, and mental clarity. This is where it really depends on person to person. So what is the secret sauce? I ain't explaining anything, I'm telling you. All these people who devoted their routine towards a new lifestyle all did the same thing. They ate less calories than they could burn, calories in versus calories out, whether they tracked it or not. They ate in regular intervals that they could stick to consistently. In the morning, instead of thinking about food, they had less time to dedicate towards prepping and eating. And they were even shown that hunger really isn't a bad thing. Eventually, their brain was re-hardwired, and the lack of morning food wasn't worth the reaction, which is hunger, which all comes down to the sense of community. In fewer words for now, a sense of community moves mountains, raises villages, and changes the nation. In this case, it forces adherence, and sticking to a program makes all the difference. So who is the intermittent fasting for? To be straight, anyone, even if you're looking to build muscle, so long as you have the appropriate amount of protein for your body weight and are training close to failure at least 3 times per week. Like most diet protocols and fads, it depends on your lifestyle and your personality. Intermittent fasting can be very beneficial for someone who has a busy schedule or in the morning and on the go and less busy in the evening, as well as the ability to free up mental space from thinking about what to eat can be very freeing for some people. I know I've been there where sometimes in the morning I was just annoyed about different breakfast items. However, now I don't think intermittent fasting is appropriate for someone who's under 20 years old, as there's a lack of evidence on the effects of fasting on brain development, which occurs until 25. Also, I believe people who aren't busy and on the go will have a hard time to adjust to not eating for anything for many hours. Patience is a big key and could be a test for a lot of individuals. Now, I don't know if you are looking to make your life harder, but sometimes making something more difficult will be more difficult. So how can you adjust to intermittent fasting? You can start slow by adding a few fasting hours before and after sleeping. Say you typically eat at 8 a.m. and your last meal is at 8 p.m. Eat your first meal at 9 a.m. and your last meal should be eaten about 7 p.m. and slowly add 1 hour from the start or the end of your day on a weekly basis until you hit your desired hours to feeding ratio. Fast when you are your busiest. If you find that you're busier in the evening, fast then sleep. For instance, start eating at 7 a.m. and stop eating at 3 p.m. This would be 16 hours of fast and 8 hours of feeding. Lastly, if you find that you still need something in your stomach during the fast, do a protein fast, which is essentially a protein shake with a calorie-free liquid and protein powder, which is actually a strategy that I use all the time when I know that for dinner I'm going to be having a feast or if I'm going to socialize at a restaurant. And this just became Jimmy's fad over 5. Tune in next week and I'll get it right.